Hi, my name is Brandon, and I just ran D&D for the first time. It was New Year's Day, January 1st, 2020, and we ran for about 7 hours. It was insane. We got together at 1 in the afternoon and went till 8:30. It was a lot of fun. It went pretty well eventually, but it started off pretty rocky. If you've never run the Lost Mines of Phandelver starter set, it starts off with a goblin ambush. Everybody's in this caravan, and goblins ambush from the sides. And I think my players had a hard time kind of understanding just how much consequences and freedom they had, particularly in combat, because it did not go well. Almost instantly, the tiefling rogue Temerity was killed outright. We didn't actually kill her; they were attacking to subdue right at the last second, but she went out with a bang pretty unceremoniously. Can you go out unceremoniously with a bang? I don't think that's how that works. My wife, playing the half orc druid, decided not to tell the party that she knew that there were people hiding in the bushes, and so the dwarf player Bruntsor got ambushed. He got surprised, and kept rolling like absolute garbage. He missed a javelin throw. There was a goblin right in front of him, and he missed him with his axes. It was kind of a bloodbath. It was a real mess. So eventually they gathered everybody up, and they decided they were going to look for the trail where the goblins went. But they just kept rolling like shit. So for like 6 hours in game time, they were just looking for this trail, and they kept rolling like sixes and eights with their ability modifiers for their perception checks, and just couldn't find this trail. So they decided to gather everybody up, get everything back in the wagon, and make it to Phandalin, which is the main town in the adventure. The problem is that I have not accounted for them potentially not finding that trail. So when they got to Phandalin, I had kind of skimmed all of the Phandalin stuff in the adventure book that comes with the starter set, but I hadn't done a ton of research, and I certainly didn't have anything prepared. So there was a lot of kind of flying by the seat of my pants, and that was cool. That was a lot of fun. There was a lot of improv involved in that, and a lot of role playing. And they basically did what I know my wife does and what I do in role playing games in like Skyrim or stuff like that. And they just collected side quests. They went around town for like a day and a half in game time and just talked to everybody and came up with like 6 side quests that they're not supposed to get to till later. And they everything that I said they took super seriously. I would make offhanded comments about like, oh yeah, sometimes there's orcs in those mountains, and they'd be like, orcs, we're gonna go fight them. And so they ended up not really taking on any of the side quests, but everything that I talked to them about, they took to heart and they took really seriously. And that was a lot of fun. It was also very funny for me to watch that. Eventually, after they had gathered all of their side quests, after they had talked to everybody that they wanted to talk to, at this point they had started really kind of getting a feel for their characters and understanding how role playing works. But they had only had one combat encounter, and I watch a lot of Matt Colville's videos, and so I'm kind of that school of thought of like a perfect session is 50% combat and 50% role play. Maybe I shouldn't be a part of any school of thoughts. This is my first time running, but whatever. That's the way that it is. So eventually, after talking to a lot of the NPCs in the area and in the town, they decided to go back and look for the trail to find the goblin hideout. And they get there, and this is where things get really cool because they start really understanding how combat works. And instantly it was like sparks went off in their eyes, particularly my wife. We got to a battle in the middle of the cavern, and she got up out of her chair and she was running around and she was screaming. And it made me really understand why this is such a beloved hobby by so many people. They got about halfway through the cavern. They saved the human hostage that was there, and then he was in really bad shape, and they weren't looking too good either. So they decided to go back to town again. They did a bunch more role playing. They did some small side quest stuff, and then eventually they went back to the mouth of the cavern, and that's where we left it off. They leveled up right at the mouth of the cavern because there was a couple goblins waiting for them, and that ended up taking like an hour because we don't have a physical copy of the player's handbook, so we're using these like cheap PDFs that you can just find online, and they're not very user friendly. And my buddy who's playing the dwarf wants to multi-class because he just wants me to have an aneurysm or something like that. So that ended up taking about an hour, and by that time we were so drained. We had been there for 7 hours. We had eaten, so we were starting to get tired, and we decided that it would be cool to call it a night at that point. But it was awesome. It was 7 grueling hours, and I was spent afterwards. I was just absolutely done for. And we set up the time for our next session, which is in about a week and a half on a Sunday. And that'll be the first session where my other buddy, who has played Dungeons and Dragons before, is coming in. I still don't know anything about his character. I don't know how we're going to incorporate him. I imagine that he'll probably also be at the cavern for one reason or another. Maybe he's some kind of bounty hunter that has his own agenda. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But it'll be about a week and a half before we're able to do this again. And I can't wait. It was the most fun that I had had in a long time. So it's official. I wasn't too concerned about it, but I love Dungeons and Dragons. I'll be back in about a week and a half to tell you what happened after our next session. Until then, bye.